And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby 411. I am your host, as always. My name is Joshua Shibata, and I want to apologize for the lateness of this video. I've had a very busy week, but don't worry. Getting this video out just in time for the next weekend of MLR action. Of course, this is the MLR Power Rankings for Week 6, and what another great week or weekend of games. Some heartbreak, a lot of heartbreak from me, but some really, really great games. A couple of upsets, a lot of moving around in the rankings today. So let's get started with it. First of all, team number 13. We have a new one, and it's almost kind of by default, unfortunately for Old Glory DC. They're going to be the number 13 team. They had a bye. They were the team that actually had a bye this week. But because of the abilities and the strong effort by team number 12, I felt that Old Glory had to slide down. Of course, Old Glory hasn't been doing very well this season anyways. They have still yet to achieve a victory. But, now that they're off their bye, they'll have a chance to kind of rebound up. But that does make room for the number 12 team, the hard luck Dallas Jackals. I mean, what a game they played against New Orleans. Now again, granted it was New Orleans, not necessarily the strongest team either. And, before going into this week, especially after the trumping that Dallas took, a record-breaking trumping from Utah. Originally, I had Dallas winning this game against New Orleans, but, I kind of thought better of that. And you know what? I almost ate my own words. Dallas came very, very close to winning the game. They were losing 5-24, but then came back within just 3 points behind two amazing tries by Alejandro Torres. Again, just a lot of effort, a lot of talent on the Dallas Jackals team. Just, you can see a lot of the cohesion is just not quite there. It's a shame because, especially that Choctaw Stadium in Dallas, granted it's kind of suffering the same issues that the LA Coliseum, the world famous LA Coliseum, is having with the LA Guiltinis. It's such a big stadium that's such a small crowd of rugby fans, even though they're very loyal and diehard rugby fans with Dallas. It still looks kind of small on the screen. But man, Dallas really did try their hardest. They came very, very close to winning at one point. I felt bad keeping them at 13, so moved them up 12. And again, Old Glory didn't do anything this weekend, but, easily fell down to the 13th place. Both teams, Dallas and New England, Old Glory DC, are still looking for that first coveted win. Moving on, we are now with Seattle, the Seawolves. Staying at number 11. No movement there. Unfortunately, suffered a loss. Some hard bad luck. Some horrible ball skills with the team. Played against a very game Houston. The score is a lot closer than it looked. 19-21. Seattle ended up getting some last minute tries to get it close within 3. But again, Seattle picking up the loss. This is 3 straight losses now for the only 2-time MLR champions in Major League Rugby. And after a hot start of 3-0 with the Seawall defense, you were thinking at one point that Seattle may be coming back into the title contention, but now have slid back down. Again, 3 straight losses. They are stuck here in the lower third of the power rankings. Kind of picking up what I feel is kind of like the grouping of the lower teams is the Toronto Arrows at number 10. Another team that I feel just a lot of bad luck. Again, still on the longest road trip in the history of any major sports, and they're still going to continue that until at least a couple weeks. I believe April is when they'll finally get to play in Toronto, in their hometown. They have still been traveling. They went to a very, very cold New England for the home opener of the New England Free Jacks game, where it was literally snowing outside. Horrendous weather conditions. Though, to be honest, it really shouldn't have been too much of an issue. Toronto, they are dealing with a very cold winter themselves. It would have been, I think, a little bit different if, say, a West Coast team like LA or San Diego played in those conditions. But Toronto, again, they also kind of made the game close. New England defense was just a little strong. Sam Malcolm, though, for Toronto, had a beautiful kick pass to a try. If you didn't see the game, watch for that one. It was amazing. But again, a lot of sloppy play from Toronto. Weather conditions. A last minute try from them also made the score a lot closer than it was. But the Arrows did lose. I didn't feel that, especially with the losses by Toronto and Seattle, nowhere to go. They couldn't go really further any down. So nowhere to go. They stay in their position. So Toronto and Seattle still at 10 and 11. Now, unfortunately, the biggest slider this week, and it breaks my heart, the defending and reigning MLR champions, the LA Guiltinis, sliding 4 spots to number 9. I was at that game. It was, it was very similar to the Austin game where, and again, not being a homer for my home team, but I really felt the Guiltinis kind of beat themselves. A lot of sloppy play from them as well. And just a lack of firepower, a lack of depth. They are dealing, and again, a lot of teams are dealing with injuries, so there's really no excuse for it, but the Guiltinis are definitely hurting. There was a stat that they showed during the pregame warm-up that there's at least 7 players in the Guiltinis that are hurt. They had to start a new scrum half because, unfortunately, Harrison Goddard, their really talented young scrum half, had a COVID positive test that pulled him out. Taz Smith, though, who came in as the replacement and backup scrum half, did a very, very good job. Scored a try. We're still starting the oldest MLR player ever in the history of MLR at 42 years young. Coach Renee Ai played at fly half again. The Guiltinis have not yet had Matt Giteau come back to start the season. The backup fly half, Jack Hardy, had a pectoral tear in the preseason. He is out for probably the whole season. And then Luke Burton, the third fly half, unfortunately had a staph infection. They've just been dealing with it with the Guiltinis. But they still had this game pretty close. There was one point where the Guiltinis were up and were about to win the game until the last 10 minutes, where unfortunately just sloppy play, tired defense, no depth on the bench. Utah was able to run away with the game. And so Guiltinis slide into the bottom third for, I believe, the very first time. I didn't do power rankings last season, but obviously they were pretty dominantly the number 1 team in the league. So this is new territory for them. And I don't feel it's going to get any easier, unfortunately, with their next opponent being the San Diego Legion. But we'll see. Moving on, the number 8 spot, Houston SaberCats. Houston played pretty tough they played pretty tough against Seattle. Almost lost the game. So that's why I didn't move them from their number 8 spot. I moved them up 1 spot. I don't feel that the win against Seattle really warranted them to go any higher. And again, they almost lost at home. It was a very, very close game. But they did jump 1 spot over the LA Guiltinis, who they have beaten in the very beginning of the season. Another team that didn't move anywhere, Nolo Gold. The surprising team of last week. They continue their win streak of 2 games, but again, their win this time against the Dallas Shackles, which again, they almost lost that game as well. Wasn't super impressive, beating on one of the lowest teams in the power rankings, so I didn't feel they warranted a jump up, didn't feel they warranted a slide down, so they stayed at number 7. And again, I just want to put the caveat before moving on. If you've never seen my power rankings before, this deals with what goes on the pitch. It has nothing to do with their records, winning or losing. It really is about the actions that they have on the pitch per week. It doesn't matter what you did in the prior. It's really about what is current. So that's why things do change quite rapidly. And sometimes some things stay the same. Plus, two, it does take into account who you've beaten, what your record's like. So if you're beating on a bunch of lower-ranked teams and you tend to lose against the upper-ranked teams, you're probably never going to go very high up, even though your record may be pretty good. So that's kind of the standards and basis and the criteria that I make for this power ranking. Moving on, the number 6 spot, it is still, again, another team that I felt really didn't need to move too much, the San Diego Legion. Now, granted, their game against Rooney, which I just finished with, was a great game. Hell of a game, very back and forth action. You got to give San Diego some credit that they apparently flew in late into Queens, New York. Didn't get a chance to do a captain's run, which is kind of like a walkthrough if you're familiar with football terms. It's kind of a warm-up for the team to kind of get used to especially if you're a away team, kind of get used to the field you're playing in, kind of go over some last-minute details. They had none of that. They had to go straight from the airport to the hotel rooms to get some sleep. They landed, I believe they said, like at 3 in the morning. They had to get some sleep and then get ready for the game. Conditions were super, super cold. Not as bad as it was in New England for the Toronto and Free Jacks game, but about 20 to 30 degrees, cold, no snow, but definitely not San Diego weather. So, got to give the Legion a lot of credit. It came down to penalty kicks. A last-second penalty kick from Jack Hyten from New York made the difference. San Diego really made it competitive. And again, it came down to the penalty kickers. Joe Peterson is the star kicker for the Legion, and he missed one penalty goal. If it wasn't for that, the game might have been a little bit different. But you got to give San Diego credit. But again, they didn't win. Didn't feel that I never feel that if you lose, that you should be able to move up unless somebody completely fell from the top ranking, slid down. So I feel San Diego should just stay at number 6. But a very tough game for them. A really good showing. Now, the biggest jumper of this week is, of course, the team that beat the LA Guiltinis, the Utah Warriors, moving up from number 8 to number 5. A good win, a little bit of a struggle. Again, I felt, as I said before, not being biased at all, I felt like the Austin game against LA and the Utah game were very similar. I didn't feel Utah played very well. Again, for whatever reason, Mikey Teo and Mika Kruse, except for one play by Mika Kruse where he kind of just ran almost 50 meters of room where no one seemed to touch him, kind of changed the momentum of the game. But really, other than that, Mikey Teo and Mika Kruse were kind of non-relevant in the game. Lance Williams actually did most of the work for Utah. Because of that, I didn't feel Utah played very strong. It was a interesting game, and again, I feel that LA kind of did more of the damage to themselves. But Utah still got the win, and a stronger performance away and a win. I felt that it warranted them to slide over New Orleans and San Diego to get that number 5 spot. So, again, in the preseason, I predicted Utah to be doing pretty well. And a slow start. Again, I'm wondering what it is about Utah right now that they're not allowing. I don't know if it's the teams that are playing them that know the weapons that they have and making sure that they take them out of the equation. But Utah not exactly playing at their full capabilities, I feel, but a win's a win. A win against, the former champions kind of means something. So we'll see how long they stay there, if they can move up, or if they're going to continue to slide back down. And I think it really does depend on if they can get Mikey and Mika, their 2 greatest weapons, to do something. Moving on from there, the next biggest slide, and quite a bit of an upset in my opinion, is the former number 1 team, the Austin Gilgronis, sliding down to number 4 with a loss to Rugby ATL. It was a battle between number 1 of the West and number 1 of the East, and screwed me up on the Super Brew picks. I really felt Austin can do it, but you know what? The signs were kind of there. Especially with the LA game. This was a team going into the LA game scoring an average of 40-some points. They only scored 20 points, and that was all in the second half. 22 points in the second half after being blanked in the first half. The offensive firepower of Austin is just not there right now, and Atlanta was completely dominant the entire game. 16-7 in the first half. It wasn't until the second half that Austin kind of made it a little bit more competitive, but then Atlanta just ran away with the game. So, the commentators of the game were kind of mentioning that it's a brutal schedule that they've been going through. 6 games with no break yet. And it could be that they're just tiring out right now. Also visiting Atlanta, playing in the Snake Pit, which seems to be a very, very hard place to play. Austin just seemed to be very flat in the game. So, we'll see if they can bounce back. We'll see. Atlanta was a team that I felt, and we'll talk more about it when we get to them, I felt was going to struggle with the new coaches that had to be put in at the last second, the new ownership. But it looks like they're kind of making me eat my words. But we'll see. It's still technically a little early in the season, and that was a very, very strong win for Atlanta. East Conference gets the win over the West Conference in this one. Moving on to number 3, a very tough win for them against a very game San Diego Legion. Rooney moved up 1 spot from number 4 to number 3. Again, it was a really good game, a really competitive game. And again, if you want to watch any of the games in Major League Rugby, go no further than the Rugby Network. You can watch every game that has been played so far and every game coming up absolutely free, on demand. That's how I watch all the games. Again, when I do these power rankings, I watch every game, which is why this video has kind of come out a little late. I had to kind of cram in a lot of games in a very short amount of time, and here we are now. But that game, again, Rooney was really great. Jack Hayton, the backup fly half who stepped in for Sam Windsor, who right now is still the highest point scorer of all time from MLR. Unfortunately, he's injured right now, so Jack Hayton has come in, and man, was he amazing. 6 for 6, he scored 16 points off of the tee. His last second penalty kick secured the win for Rooney, and it was a good win. Good enough win to move him up 1 spot over a game Legion. Now, moving on. The New England Free Jacks, a team that is really finding their speed and their pace, sticking to number 2. They had a tough game against Toronto. Now, granted, again, the snowy conditions, it was horrible. TMO took forever because just the snow was messing up the cameras and everything. It was not a pretty game, but enough to give them the victory over Toronto. Not impressive enough for them to move into the number 1 spot. Bodie Nwaka is still the greatest player so far this season in MLR. He did this amazing kick pass to himself, which he then caught off of his foot. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I highly recommend, even if you're not a huge rugby fan, you gotta watch that just for the athletic skill of it all. New England is looking like a very, very dangerous team. At the beginning of the season, I predicted them to be in competition for the East, but I really felt they were going to be the team that would be left out between Rooney and, spoiler alert, the number 1 team, Rugby ATL. But I don't know. Right now, Free Jacks could beat either Rooney or ATL. Wouldn't be surprised at all. And, of course, I just spoiled it. The number 1 team in the power rankings, Rugby ATL, with a huge win over the Austin Gilgronis. ATL just looked amazing. They never looked like they were in any danger of losing the game. Austin looked very, very flat. ATL completely took it to them. Granted, they were playing at home, but man, ATL looked like the number one team, which is why they're ranked number one. Yeah, and that's our rankings. Now, if you look at it, 3 teams from the Eastern Conference sitting at the very top, with 1 team from the West. Well, actually, 3 teams kind of bringing up the West. Makes sense, if you think about it, because again, the number 1 East team played the number 1 West team, and East won. Rooney being, I think, now number 2 in the East against a relatively 2 or 3 team in the West with the Legion, and Rooney won. So right now, it's looking like the East is the better conference. It's very competitive in both conferences, with Austin, San Diego, and Utah kind of competing with each other. Houston's kind of hanging around a little bit. And of course, these 3 teams are fighting for the Eastern Conference. This season, 3 teams from each conference will make it into the playoffs. The top team will get a bye. Number 2 and number 3 will play against each other, and then we'll move on to the championship semifinals. But yeah, it looks very, very interesting right now. But again, still just week number 6 we finished, so not even close to halfway, but still a lot of rugby to go. There's a lot of potential for any of these teams to start a run to the top, especially with LA, if we can get some healthy players. We're still looking for first wins from Dallas and Old Glory. We'll see if Seattle finds themselves again after again a nice hot start of 3-0, now 3-3. Again, lots of fun, fascinating stuff, and I'm excited. So again, if you like my video, let me know. Please subscribe. Please like. Give me your comments. Let me know what you think of the teams that I've ranked here. If your favorite team made the ranking or not. And I'm just excited to see where we head to in week number 7. So again, thank you very much for watching my video, and I'll see you on the pitch.